Hi, anyone and everyone. Welcome to Have You Heard About This Case? My name is Sam.
And my name is Kelly.
Today, we are going to talk about the disappearance of Lauren Spierer from Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And Kelly, if you remember at our friend's wedding in October, I was talking with one of the other bridesmaids, Jess, about this case. And if I remember right, Jess went to Indiana University around the same time or potentially at the same time of Lauren's disappearance. She didn't know Lauren, but it's a case that she's been keeping her eye on because it hits close to home.
Mm-hmm.
And you know me, you know the cases I like to choose. I typically relate to them in some way or another. You and I are very close to Lauren's age at the time of her disappearance. And I think Jess is kind of just in the same boat, so she wanted to keep her eye on it.
Yeah.
But before we dive in, what is our question for today?
Okay, so we both have had things happening lately around us that have made us largely family-oriented. And I was wondering, are there any heirlooms in your family?
Oh, goodness.
Or names, maybe, passed down?
Names, not so much. But I know my grandmother holds on to everything in the most wonderfully sentimental way. My grandma is 97 years old, and she's
fabulous.
She's amazing. My grandma's
She's
wonderful.
Amazing.
And she understands that value. And so we, like at Christmas every year, even just like we have spoons that we use to serve the dishes that are from the 1700s.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we have a very, very extensive family history. We have documentation that goes back to like the 1100s in my family. So yeah, there's a lot of like little things. I don't have anything specifically. I know my mom has some artwork, some photographs from like the late 1800s and some paintings from before that. But nothing that's like the big family heirloom that everyone is like has their eye on. What about you?
Yeah. So in my family, it's more of a case of names. We hand down a lot of names. My middle name is a family name, and my first name is a family name as well. I don't know if I spoke of this in the infamous Danny Green episode, but my first name, Kelly, is an homage to my grandmother, and it is her maiden name.
Oh, nice.
So
I think you've told me that, but I think I forgot.
Yeah, both my first and my middle names are heirloom. One from my dad's side and one from my mom's side.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know that your aunt is where you get your middle name.
Yes. And she got her name from my grandmother.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that
That's
one
awesome.
actually... Yeah, that one goes back a little bit as well on my mom's side.
Yeah, I know my brother-in-law's family, every male in his family has the middle name Zell because that's an old family name. Zell.
Oh, because now it's like a payment processing service.
Right?
So
no E at the end.
I was going to say like QuickPay Zell or...
No, just Zell. But every male in his family for many generations are Zells.
Huh. That's interesting. And, there's a lot of names handed down on my dad's side as well, particularly. There's a lot of Irish names that are passed down on my dad's side for the men. But a particular one that's really cool is that the name Dawson runs in our family for years and years and years. It's gone back. And there is an heirloom specific to the men in my family named Dawson. And every generation, there is at least one male who has Dawson in his name, and that male is given a gold pocket watch at a
that's
certain
cool.
age. Yeah, so my dad had Dawson in his name, and he had the pocket watch for many years. And I remember the year he decided to give it to my cousin, because he was the next, he had Dawson in his name as well. So my dad got to hand him down the gold pocket watch.
That's cool.
So it's kind of like an heirloom within an heirloom.
Yeah, we actually, now that you mentioned that, we do have one thing. I don't know the real history of it, but I do think it's really cool. We have a pin. It's a little blue oval pin. And every woman in the family has worn it as her something blue.
Oh.
In the wedding. So if you, as we just mentioned, at our friend's wedding, my sister and I were both bridesmaids. My sister was a maid of honor. And this we'll talk about her later because she actually is a source for me in this case. But we asked permission from our family to offer it as something blue for her wedding. So she was the last one to wear it. But I'm pretty sure every woman in my family has used that as something blue. And it's like, it's falling apart. I'm surprised it's still intact to use and wear. But yeah, everyone has used it.
That's one. I love that. I just love hearing, it's like little time capsules of people's families specifically.
Yeah, I should call my grandma and see the history on that pin and like who started it, how old it is. I don't know any of that. I should give her a phone call.
You should ask her before, before it's too late, because then you'll be the keeper of the story.
I'm the next person. If I ever get married, I think I would be the next person to use it. I'm the oldest granddaughter who's not married.
Yeah, and
or who hasn't been
maybe
married.
Want to know. Yeah, and you'd maybe want to know the history behind it.
Yeah, I should definitely ask that. I never really thought about like where it started. Yeah, I'll be doing that pretty soon here, giving my grandma a call. But let's go ahead and dive into Lauren's case because this is
let's hear about Lauren.
There's a lot of things that are very confusing in this case. We'll post a ton of pictures on Facebook, specifically maps. Kelly, I actually have them worked into my script so you can see them. Okay. So I'm going to try to break this down as clearly as possible, but there's a lot to this case. But Lauren was born on January 17th, 1991, and she lived in Scarsdale, New York. Her parents, Charlene and Robert Spierer, describe Lauren as loving and caring and said that she just had a zest for life during their 2020 episode that aired in 2017. She's also described as like really loving like classic rock music, 60s, 70s, 80s rock, and that like just is me. Yeah. That's exactly like how I grew up.
Absolutely. And she's so close to our age. She is this. I was born in 91 as well.
Yeah, I was born in 89, so I was barely older than that. At one point, her parents were asked in this 2020 interview if they were proud of Lauren. And the look on both of their faces was so wonderful and heartbreaking. You could tell that they were so proud of her, but so incredibly hurt by her disappearance.
Oh.
And
why did they ask them that?
Dramatic television.
Yeah, exactly. Like just for the eyeballs, because that seems like such a hurtful question. But also they're able to share with the world how proud they were of their daughter. So.
Yeah, and their family just seemed very tight-knit. And I think that's what they were trying to get at in this point. And you'll see why they're proud of Lauren. You throughout this, you'll understand why. But Lauren had a group of lifelong friends that she met starting around the age 9 or 10 when she went to Camp Towanda, which is in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
And she met one of her best friends there, Blair Wallach, who was also interviewed in the 2020 documentary. But she also met her boyfriend, Jessie Wolf there. It sounds like she went to camp for many, many years. So I think she actually met Jessie in like early to mid teenage years. But they went to IU together, Indiana University. And she met another friend while at camp, Jay Rosenbaum, who was another IU student. So she had this core group of friends in college with her.
Yeah, I was going to say, so they kind of all went to college together.
Yeah, from the sound of
Except
it, they
for Blair.
really didn't intend on going to college together. It just kind of, IU had what everyone wanted, so it just worked out. And Lauren started college at Indiana University in the fall of 2009. She intended to study textile merchandising. And she previously had an internship with anthropology in New York City. So she was already on track to get to this point.
That's crazy. Also, I can't stop, like, the dates. I'm just like, oh my God. Because, of course, I started college in the fall of 2009 as well. But she's almost... She's
a couple months older than you.
I was going to say, she's almost exactly 2 months older than me.
Yeah. And I started fall in 2008. So, like, I'm right there with you guys.
Yeah. And I knew a bunch of people who, in our area at our school, we called it fashion merchandising.
I saw it referred to that a lot. But I think that for her title, it was textile merchandising. But she was going into fashion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to be an intern for anthropology, that's like coveted. It's very... Especially when you're in, like, merchandising.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. Because anthro windows are always... Y'all have seen anthro windows. They're beautiful.
The whole store is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. But I don't have $500 to burn in my backyard.
Exactly. And according to niche.com, which is a ranking website for colleges, IU receives an A ranking overall. And some of the criteria that is individually ranked on this website is academics, diversity, athletics, value, campus, safety, and party scene. And that's just a handful of what's ranked. The party scene at IU was an A+, while safety is ranked as a C+, which was the lowest ranking of any of the criteria that they were judging.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Yeah. So from the sound of it...
Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm from Ohio, and there are schools in Ohio that definitely also have A+ safety and C+, or A+ party, C+ safety.
My college back in the day was a Playboy school. We weren't too far from Lake Geneva with the Playboy Mansion. My college was a Playboy school.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to dog any college, but I was afraid you would say A+ party, C+ safety.
So, like, as we just kind of said, it sounds like it's a pretty big party school. And in the year 2024, this year, it was ranked as 15th top party school in America, according to niche.com. I've heard a lot of other rankings. I've heard that it is number 1, but even if it's 15, it's high.
15 is very high. That is very out of everybody. I'm looking up the rankings right now just to see where some of the Ohio schools.
I know. I looked at my college.
Fall. Yeah, I didn't call out the school in particular in Ohio that we all know that I'm talking about. Ohio listeners, I know you're on here, Ohio listeners, and you know what college I'm talking about. And I'm checking right now to see where it falls on Nisha's score.
But
sorry.
In addition to
Lauren
being 15th top party school, it was also 16th for best Greek life. And obviously those two things are not exclusive to each other. But honestly, like let's be real here. They go hand in hand most of the time.
A little bit, skis. A little bit. I mean, I was not involved in Greek life myself, so I can't speak too much to it. But I do know that the only time I was involved with Greek life was at a party at
Yeah.
a fraternity, or I never, the sororities never really did parties, but the fraternities were all on, they called it fraternity row because they're all the houses together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, some of these on Nisha's top party schools are surprising to me.
Really, I only really looked up because I was looking up IU rankings, and that was one of like the most well-rounded sites, which is why I chose it. But there's a lot of sites that put it at like different rankings.
Sam, you can cut this if you want. University of Wisconsin hit 8, and University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign is 9.
Yeah, not surprised with either one of those at all.
Yeah.
What's number one?
Let's see. What's number one?
So this is totally a tangent, and I may cut it.
Down, yeah.
But
you can cut this if you want. It's the University of California, Santa Barbara.
Okay, I'm not surprised with that
sense
either.
To me. Yeah, that makes sense to me. So far, a lot of these make sense to me, but I was like, really? Georgia? Georgia beat Wisconsin.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me either.
Yeah,
I think a lot of those big football schools are a big part of it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what IU is. They have the Hoosiers, which I was most people know the Hoosiers are a big team.
Big team, yeah. Yeah.
But I did bring up Greek life, but I do also want to mention that Greek life really has no relevance to this case. I think that kind of helps give an image of what parties could be like and what campus life could be like, because as I said, they're not exclusive to each other, but they very frequently go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, and you're right about that.
One thing that Lauren really had to be careful of, especially considering partying in college, was that she had a heart condition called long QT syndrome.
Oh no.
And Lauren was a very talented soccer and lacrosse player in high school, but unfortunately she was forced to step back from sports after her diagnosis. And I have a very good friend, the one we were talking about earlier, who was getting married and took the pin. Used
friend
the
of
pin.
the pod.
Yes.
Friend of the pod.
She is a very good friend of mine who was actually a heart rhythm nurse for 6 years. So I asked her to help me understand her condition and how her condition impacted her life. And she did a really wonderful job helping me just understand the basics and answered a ton of questions that I had, which we'll get into kind of as we go throughout this episode. But I want to call you out, Allie. Thank you so much for your help, because this is a big part of this case and understanding kind of what Lauren was going through.
Yeah.
But she told me that long QT syndrome is a heart condition that causes dangerous rhythms, and it's not necessarily a common condition, but the majority of people who are diagnosed with long QT syndrome are teenage athletes. So that fits Lauren very much.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I want to read for you word for word what Allie sent me about long QT syndrome, because she just worded it so well that I'm not going to try to rewrite it. She said, essentially, part of their heart takes longer to recharge. The heart is a very intricate and electrical process that has specific timing. In some people, if the timing isn't right, it can set off the heart to go into a really fast and dangerous rhythm. It typically occurs with exercise or stress on the heart. Therefore, there's not really a lot of symptoms or warning until a person goes into cardiac arrest, and they get an EKG, which essentially is going to be a snapshot of patients with heart rhythm. A lot of times people have family members who end up, who just up and die without warning. Nothing shows up in an autopsy, and this can be a good indication that they may have electrical issues like long QT syndrome. So I think that breakdown kind of helps us understand how and when it occurs, and sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah, that's terrifying. I mean, to know that it's common in teenage athletes, and your teenage athlete child could just go down and you have no idea why. That's so scary. It also reminds me of the okay, never mind, just cut this. I was gonna try Damar Hamilton.
Yeah, I don't
When
know
he
if
went
that's
into
what
cardiac arrest.
happened.
Yeah. No,
Um,
that's it. It's absolutely not long QT syndrome or anything like it. It was just an unlucky hit in the timing of the beating rhythm of his heart. But just the going into full cardiac arrest so quickly like that, that's what it made me think of.
yeah, it's been a very long time since I've seen it, but I think this is what one of the characters in One Tree Hill went through. I'm not sure if you've ever watched that. It's not that great.
I'm familiar-ish. Or in
there's
that
one
I kind of grew
character
up
who, during a basketball game, collapses due to a heart issue. I don't remember if it's long QT syndrome, but based on what I remember from the show, it sounds kind of similar. But one thing we do know is that Lauren did have medication for her condition. But from what I'm understanding from different articles, this was not a daily medication. This was something that she took if she felt like she needed it. So her condition seemed fairly manageable.
Okay. So this is, and maybe this is more of an Lauren Spierer question, but I wonder if everyone who has long QT syndrome gets medication, or if Lauren's was just warranting medication.
Yeah, we honestly didn't talk about that. We talked about a lot of stuff following up, which we'll get to later on.
Yeah.
That wasn't really the focus, but that is a really good question.
Yeah. It's not a podcast about long QT syndrome. It's about Lauren. So in this case, it was not needed daily.
So Lauren disappeared early morning of June 3rd, 2011. She had already finished her classes for that semester. She just finished her second year. And she just hadn't returned back to New York for the summer yet. There were still some classes going on at this point. I'm not sure if you had this during your finals period, but some people finished at different times. And her boyfriend, Jesse, wasn't done yet. And they planned on traveling back to New York together because he was also from there. So
it sounds like state school common. Like my school was a state school and was similar. Like you could finish earlier than your friends. It just all depended on when your finals were scheduled.
Yeah, and I even went to a private school and it was the same exact thing. So yeah, I think it definitely is just like that's a pretty typical type of setup for most colleges. And so this area is still very crowded and lively. And Lauren lived off campus in an apartment with her friend Hadar, who I believe has been another long-term friend. She's honestly not really relevant to the story, so I didn't dive into her too much. But it seems like they had a fantastic relationship as roommates.
Yeah.
So on the night of June 2nd, there was a big basketball game. It was the NBA playoffs at this point. And being IU, this is just a big basketball town in general with the Hoosiers, but like a lot of people in town are just huge basketball fans. So it seems like most people in town were like having parties and watching games and stuff. And Lauren is no exception to this. She was with a few friends. I'm not sure if she was in her apartment or another unit in the building at a friend's place, but in her building, minimally. And
in the building.
They were, she would have been down the hall if she wasn't in her own apartment type of thing. And they were having fun. They were drinking wine. They had just finished the semester, watching the basketball game, having a good night.
Yeah.
So the game ends just around midnight. I think it ended just before midnight. And Lauren texts her boyfriend, Jesse, saying she was going to go to bed. And Jesse was kind of doing the same thing with his own friends at his place.
Right, like winding down.
Yeah, and he wasn't done with classes, so I don't know if he just didn't want to go out to party or if he just wanted to hang with his friends that night and they just were going to do their own separate things.
Right.
And she texts him saying she's going to go to bed. She said she had a bit of a headache and didn't really want to go out and do much. But in reality, she didn't stay home. She went to a party.
Okay.
And around midnight, so a little after the game ended, Lauren left her apartment with a friend of hers, who was also a neighbor. He lived in the same building, David Rohn.
Okay.
And there's surveillance footage that was released of Lauren walking down the hallway of her apartment building to meet David so that they could walk to this party together. Lauren was wearing black yoga pants or leggings and a white tank top and a baggier white shirt. It's referred to as a blouse in most articles, but it looks like a polo to me. And it was kind of tucked in. And Lauren was a very small woman. She was 4'11" and 95 pounds.
I'm so sorry. The reason I laughed is just that I've always been also considered a very small woman, and the measurements given for Lauren are actually incredibly close to my own. Especially, well, when I was in college. So I'm going to keep that in mind, like, as I move through your story here about what could have happened to Lauren, because she's 4'11". That's even shorter than me, and I don't come across that very much. I'm 5 foot, so I'm only a couple inches taller than her. And in college, I would have weighed roughly the same amount. So that gives me kind of a good reference point.
Yeah, she's quite petite. And you can see a picture. I put a picture in our script here so you can kind of see that security footage. And we'll have that on our Instagram as well.
I agree. It kind of looks more like a polo.
Yeah, people say it's a blouse, but it doesn't look like there's buttons down the front. It looks like a more of a thicker texture like a polo would be. But it's a blurry picture, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I would like to...
It also looks a little like it has a collar.
That's like exactly. And it looks like it might have a couple buttons at the very top. But again, it's blurry.
But you're right. It's hard to...
One thing I would like to point out in this picture, she's holding something. It looks like maybe a jacket. We will never see this jacket again. It's never been talked about. I don't understand. I don't know. This is just my own personal thoughts of like, where did that go? I don't know.
Yeah. I was going to ask you what it was that she was carrying, because it does look like
it's like draped over her arm, like
jacket.
It would be a jacket.
Yeah.
So Lauren and David walk from their apartment building, which is the Smallwood Plaza, and they walk little less than a half a mile to 5 North Townhomes, where Jay Rosenbaum was throwing a party. And if you remember, Jay was one of the old friends Lauren went to Camp Towanda with.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I believe Lauren, Jay, David, and another friend who also lived at the same complex that Jay lived at, Corey Rossman. We have a lot of names we're going to be going through here, so I'm going to try to keep them as clear for you as possible. I believe that they were all hanging out at the party together. I don't know how big this party was. It could have just been these people. It could have been a ton more. I have no information. But David decided to not stay, and he actually left the party early around 12:30. So he was probably there like 20 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's also, that pings for me that he's leaving her alone, even though it's among friends.
Yeah, well, I also look at it as like Jay is a childhood friend. That would make you feel a lot more comfortable. But she had met Corey just the week before. But Jay and Corey were neighbors. You'd think they would know each other. It's kind of a tricky situation where, like, I understand you don't want to leave a friend alone, but you're also leaving a friend with somebody that she's probably known a whole lot longer than David Rohn. So, like, I don't fault him for leaving.
No. I'm looking at the map here that we'll share with you guys as well, and it looks like they only had to walk about 7 minutes to get to this place, right?
Yeah, it's about 3, maybe 4 blocks It's a very short walk. It's
Yeah.
0.3 miles on Google Maps.
Mm-hmm.
So after partying at Jay's for a while, Lauren and Corey decide that they're going to head out. And at 1:46 a.m., they arrive to a bar, which is only a handful of blocks away, named Kilroy's. And right below this, I have another picture for you to show how close Kilroy's is.
Very close. Yeah. Yeah.
And
like
you'll actually see
the images.
Go ahead.
Y'all will see them. Y'all will see these images, but it does look like Google Maps here is saying it would be about 9 minutes, but these things look so close to each other. I bet you could do that walk in less time.
Exactly. It's 0.4 miles from the townhomes to the bar, and they're essentially passing Lauren's apartment. Lauren's apartment's only like 1 block from this bar. And this sounds like this was like the super popular bar for the college students. It had multiple like areas of different bars inside of it. And it had this big back patio as well, which was this very sandy, beachy environment. They actually had this like sand pit by one of the bars outside.
Okay, that sounds like a fun place to go as a college student.
Yeah, like it's a total college bar. And it sounds like a ton of people on campus and who went to IU went here frequently. And Lauren's only 20 years old at this point, so she actually used a fake ID to get in. And remember,
probably
she's already been
done too. I'm not trying to knock anybody on any partying or any party school. I probably would have done this. College kids get fake IDs. It happens, you know.
Yeah, and like this was very different than my college experience, but I feel like my college experience was kind of abnormal. I feel like this is more normal.
Well, I'll help you fill in the blanks. This happened a lot at the school that I went to. And
yeah, I feel like my college was the weird one.
There were bars that students frequently knew, like the names of these bars would be handed down to like you from like an upperclassman, like X bar doesn't card. Because I'm not
going to like 3 bars in my town.
Yeah, I'm not going to put any bars near my college town on blast because I was there. And it is common. Even my college experience happened right at the same time as Lauren's, exactly the same time. And we were getting told by upperclassmen that certain bars didn't even card, let alone having to use a fake ID.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's quite common. But one thing I'd like to remind you of is Lauren's already been drinking. She was having wine with her friends. She then went to Jay's.
Right.
Probably had a handful of drinks over there. And now they're at this bar. And the bartenders actually said that Lauren was visibly intoxicated when she got to the bar.
Well, she's only 4'11", and she's, 95 pounds, you said? 90 pounds? So
it's been reported between like 90 and 100 pounds. So, yeah, very slim.
I would buy that. I would buy that she was maybe visibly intoxicated.
There are also some reports that Lauren was potentially doing coke this night as well. And potentially Klonopin.
Okay, so keep going. And then I'm going to
I had to do a lot of
college
research
lecture
for this. Yeah. And I think I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So I really honestly know very little about both of these drugs. I know stuff about coke from TV. Like, that's not really the most accurate. But I really knew nothing about Klonopin. So, from my understanding, they have opposite side effects. Coke is an upper, it'll give you that boost, while Klonopin will really bring you down. And
I'm going to raise my hand. Can I raise my hand now?
Yes.
Okay, because you're 100% correct here. Coke is an upper, and you're gonna, Coke is Coke. We have all seen it on TV, just like Sam. But Klonopin is interesting to me and pings for me because I have not often heard of people doing Klonopin recreationally. I've typically heard
I
of
have the
this
same thought.
as
That's not
prescribed.
true. I've
Really,
done a lot of
really,
Googling. And
yeah,
it's
the thing is,
heavily abused.
I was just going to say, yeah, that Klonopin is often prescribed to a lot of people. I wasn't aware that you can use it in a way that it would get you high. I've never been prescribed it. All I know is that it is a downer. It's a so she's doing, if this is correct, if any of that's to be believed, she is mixing a cocktail here of alcohol and prescription drugs, and that can be very dangerous, especially in somebody in this size category
Who has a heart condition.
who, yes, I did not even think about, yes, she also has a heart condition. Yeah. So I have heard Klonopin as just a prescription drug. Typically, you get it for like anxiety. It's going to be
panic attacks was like one of the biggest things it was prescribed for during my research.
Yeah. I was just about to say, it's going to be in the same world as like Xanax for something if you're having a panic attack, if you have generalized anxiety disorder, that kind of thing. So it is intended to bring you down from that panic attack. So she's
it's in
doing
the benzo
it recreationally.
category.
Yes, it's a benzo. Yeah. So if she's doing it recreationally, then she's probably taking more than what would be prescribed to someone. And that would concern me, just once again, given her size and now your reminder that she has a heart condition, especially that she's doing coke with a heart condition. That's very... That
was the one that's scarier for me with the idea of it. And we'll get back to this conversation. We'll go into this a bit deeper later on. But I do want to put a reminder right here, which I'll do again later. We don't have confirmation she did this.
Yeah. That's why I said before, like, if this is to be believed, then yes, she is doing an upper and a downer at the same time, which is not very good for you.
One thing that we do know with this is when her apartment was searched after her disappearance, a small amount of coke was found. So it seems like she minimally dabbled on occasion. But again, no confirmation. This is just kind of rumor that she was doing it this night.
Right.
So we're going to jump to 2:27 a.m., which is about 45 minutes after arriving at Kilroy's. Lauren and Corey, they leave together.
Wait.
Unfortunately...
Corey's the new friend. Corey's the new friend, right?
Yes.
Oh,
so they left Jay's, who Jay's the friend from camp. Corey is Jay's neighbor. They live in the same townhome complex. And the two of them choose to go to the bar together. They leave the bar together. And unfortunately, Lauren would leave her phone at the bar. And her shoes.
Okay.
So I think it's a pretty fair assumption to believe that Lauren is likely very intoxicated at this point.
Yeah.
And we weren't as attached to our phones in 2011 as we are now. But to leave it, and especially to leave your shoes behind, I just think that's a sign that she was very drunk.
Right. Because I'm just gonna... Oh, it's not really visible in the security cam footage.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I tried to see what shoes she was wearing. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. But either way, if you're leaving your shoes, there's a very high possibility that you're pretty intoxicated. And judging from just the alcohol standpoint, she likely, at this point in the evening, 2:27 a.m., I don't know about you, but I've never been at a bar at 2:27 a.m. when I wasn't hammered.
It's like they're also like I'd like to point out as well,
just
like
being
there was
honest.
that sandy area at the bar, and so it was pretty common for people to take their shoes off there.
Oh, yeah.
So she forgot. I think she probably forgot to put them back on, but she was drunk enough to not even notice that they weren't on her feet.
Right. And once again, I don't want to dog anybody. I was in college once.
Yeah.
I walked home once. But also,
I think a big part of this story is that she is a college kid partying.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, how many people do that? Like,
yeah, I'm thinking back to like my own experience because once again, it was happening concurrently, the same exact time I was at school, and you know, I have left the bar shoeless before, but I had them in my hand. Mm-hmm. Like I walked shoeless because I was wearing heels, that type of thing.
Right, and like your feet are hurting.
If she's wearing relief. Yeah, that's why I went to check what kind of shoes she had on, because if it were a pair of heels, it would make sense. Yeah, it's just cut off, yeah. Because if she was wearing heels, it would make sense. Like, maybe she was like, ow, like, I'm done. It's 2:27. I want these heels off my feet. But it is odd that she left them.
Yeah, I don't think it's odd that she took them off, but I think it is odd that she didn't notice that she was barefoot.
Yes.
Yes. So, at this point, Lauren and Corey walk back to her apartment building, which is like 2 blocks from Kilroy's. Mm-hmm. They get into the elevator. They head up to the 5th floor, which is the floor that Lauren lived on. And when they get out of the elevator, they walk by a few guys who are kind of hanging out in the hallway. And these guys were actually friends of Jesse Wolf, Lauren's boyfriend. So one of these guys, his name is Zach Oakes, he sees Corey with Lauren. And this kind of sets off some red flags. Like, what's going on? It's almost 3 a.m. And he goes up to Lauren. He asks if she's okay. He's noticing how drunk she is. And
that's that. Oh, there's so many the red flag. That's why I was like, wait, isn't Corey the new friend? And that's why I asked it in that panicked tone. That's why I asked it in that panicked tone. It doesn't surprise me at all that one of her friends who knows her more intimately wants to ask if she's okay.
Mm-hmm. And so Corey responds by saying that he's got her, she's fine. And Zach tells Corey that he needs to get her into her apartment because she doesn't look good. And I'm assuming that this is said in a very different tone. Probably use a lot more colorful words. We don't actually know word for word what's said, but I imagine it's not that. It's just along those lines.
Right.
And we don't know exactly what's said next, but whatever it was, Corey said something back to Zach. And Zach punches him in the face.
Whoa. Okay. So we've officially... Okay. That's... Oh, man. Corey, you were already a parade of red flags, and now you're getting sucker punched for being a smart mouth. I don't know, man.
And so, I believe it was earlier in the evening and that it was Jay Rosenbaum who eventually said this to police. I could be wrong on this fact. It was hard for me to find it, but I know I've heard this statement in the past, which is why I wanted to include it. But apparently Corey, earlier that night, had made comments saying that he wanted to hook up with Lauren.
I fucking knew it.
I wonder if Corey thought this was his chance.
I knew it. These dirty, dirty perverts. Knew it.
Yeah. So obviously Zach is like probably thinking the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Where like she's not okay. This random guy's bringing her up.
No.
And wanting to intervene and help her.
Yeah, she cannot consent right now. You dirty, dirty pervert. Get away from her. And I'm sure it's something like that happened. And then he got punched in the face.
Mm-hmm. So Corey's probably thinking like, oh yeah, I'm just going to take her up to her room. And maybe even she's flirting with him because she's intoxicated.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions here. And I didn't include this in my script because I just didn't know where it fit, but I think it probably fits the best here. But I wonder if there were issues in Lauren and Jesse's relationship because she told him she wasn't going out and then she immediately went out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I wonder if
that's
she
interesting.
potentially was being flirty and that there were issues in their relationship. I don't know.
Do you know how long she and her fella were together? An item?
Jesse.
Like how long they've been together?
No,
Jesse?
I tried to find that. Everything I read just said long term. And I know that they met when they were teenagers.
For a while.
So they were probably like 15, 16 meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't he one of the ones who went to camp with her? And
yep, they met at camp.
Met him. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that I wonder, that is possible, certainly. And it is possible that she was flirting with him. That all of that's very possible. But it's also very possible that she felt safe with this person because
he's a friend of a friend.
She'd known. Yeah, a friend who she'd known a very long time. You know?
Well, no, she doesn't. Are you talking about Corey or Jesse?
No, I'm talking about the one who, the last really good friend who leaves her alone at the bar with Corey.
Jay. He wasn't at the bar with them, but they left his townhouse to the bar. So yeah, she probably thinks like if Jay didn't intervene, then he thinks Corey's fine.
Right. Like if Jay said this dude's cool, this dude's probably cool. You know, so she probably felt safe-ish. You know, I remember being this age and it's really easy to trust somebody, you know, and I just remember all of this.
Yeah, like none of this to me, like it doesn't sound great, but I think that there's no fault here in Lauren's mindset.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything apart from what a normal college student would be doing. And
exactly.
Even if she was going to hook up with this guy, maybe she planned to break up with her boyfriend the next day. We can't know.
Yeah, there were some reports saying that like they seemed like from an outward point of view that they didn't necessarily have the best relationship. One of the biggest things that was called out was they removed each other from their Facebook and they had to like refriend each other at some point, which in that day and age, 2011, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. I was going to say that used to be a big deal.
So like it does seem like there potentially was issues. It's just there's nothing actually confirmed. It's just kind of something that was going through my head during the research. Yeah. After Corey gets punched by Zach, Lauren and him leave her apartment building. He doesn't even take her to her apartment. Instead, they go to Corey's townhome. So
I hate this.
Yeah. Yes.
I know that you hate this as well. I hate this.
And so it's essentially going to be the same walk that she took previously with David Rohn. I don't know if it's exactly the same route. I don't know, but it's a few minutes.
It's a couple blocks. It looks like a couple blocks. Same sort of scenario. Everything that I'm looking at, we'll share with you guys once again, but just know that everything that Sam is talking about right now, every location, is just a very short walk from each other.
Less than 10 minutes apart
each destination.
From each
other. Yeah. Each destination they've headed to is less than 10 minutes apart. So.
By foot. So it's all so close.
Yes, by foot. Yeah, so it's all so close. Yeah. So.
And while we don't have this footage, authorities do have footage of them on this walk. Okay. And apparently camera caught them walking towards the townhomes. And they were crossing this empty parking lot, which then entered into an alley. And so they're seen entering the alley and they're seen exiting the alley on these cameras.
Okay.
And police refer to the footage as like, yes, we see that this is Lauren, but they also say it's an unknown man. And it's widely believed that this is Corey. But the police aren't coming out and saying, yes, she was with Corey. We identified him in this camera. I think the footage just wasn't clear enough to confidently say, like, yes, I see that is him 100%. But it's very widely believed that, yes, this is Corey. I think Corey's statements even support that.
I agree with you. Yeah. Everything that we've heard from him thus far would seem to confirm that that would be him.
And when police went to go investigate this alley, they actually discovered that her purse and keys were actually found in the alley by somebody the next morning who was walking down it. So at some point between her being seen entering the alley and exiting the alley, she dropped her purse and her keys.
Yeah.
And apparently Lauren fell a few times on this walk. Likely due to her intoxication. And it's reported that at one point she fell and she didn't even brace her fall and she hit her head on the sidewalk.
Oh.
So we don't know how severe this is, but that could be incredibly severe.
Yeah, that could be, she could have given herself a concussion. We don't know.
And this isn't confirmed by law enforcement, but a bartender who was in the area at the time says that they saw a man throw a woman over his shoulder in a fireman's carry around 3:30 a.m. at the corner of 10th Street and College Avenue, which is in that walk. In that couple of minute walk, they would go through this intersection.
Okay, and I'm looking at the...
Yeah, it's just about a block north of Lauren's apartment.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, authorities can't confirm this tip, but a private investigator, Bo Dietl, who's hired by Lauren's parents, and Bo Dietl's a big, big name in private investigation. He was on the Zodiac case. He was on Wolf of Wall Street case. Like, he's a big name.
Okay.
And his parents were able to hire him. And so he interviewed this witness, and he believes that this witness did, in fact, see Lauren and Corey, but got his timing wrong. 2:30 a.m. is too late for this to have happened in the timeline. So he thinks that, like, yes, he did see him, but...
We mean 3:30 a.m. is too late.
Oh, yes.
In the
Did I say something else? Yes, 3:30 a.m.
You said
not
2:30.
Fit in the timeline.
Okay, so so maybe this guy mixed up 2:30 a.m. and 3:30 a.m., which is easy when you've been out all night. Especially if you're a bartender, like, you know, I feel like it's easy to mix 2:30 with 3:30 because your bar's either closed or is about to close.
Yeah, it would have been like a little bit before 3, so like he could have been off by like 40 minutes. Like, that's not that big of a gap to be off by.
And
but,
I mean, she's a small woman again, so it would make sense that if she was incapacitated, somebody might be able to easily just throw her over their shoulder. I know because it's happened to me.
Yeah, like it's definitely not something that is out of the question of what could have very easily happened to her that night. And they, at this point, they believe that Lauren fell, hit her head. Corey actually picked her up, threw her over the shoulder in this fireman's hold, and then just continued to walk to his townhome.
Okay. So I feel that's a fair estimation.
It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And it'll make more sense as we continue on here as well. So Lauren and Corey arrive at Corey's townhome, and Corey's roommate, Mike Beth, he was still awake. He says he was working on a paper. A lot of people question this, if Mike was actually working on a paper, but I think this is incredibly possible. This would have been close to 3 a.m. at this point. Friday morning, while finals are still happening, still finishing up for the year, He could have had a deadline where
Yeah.
like he needs to turn it in Friday morning. Like, I know a lot of people harp on this. Is he telling the truth? Is he really writing a paper? I've been in that position.
Wow.
I've absolutely been in that position.
Wow. Same. That it surprises me that people. You guys, I knew nothing about this case going in. I'm in here cold right now because I made very sure to steer clear.
I yelled at you to stop. You
were knowledge, yes.
Listening to
I was in danger.
Podcast, and I'm like, no, don't do it.
I was in danger. Yeah, and she was like, no, that's the one I want to cover. And I was like, okay.
You luckily texted me saying, I'm turning this one on.
I did text you, yes. And, so I'm going to this fully cold. But it surprises me that anybody would question that, like, a college kid around finals was up at 3 a.m. working on a paper. Like, that, I've done that.
Alone
I did
in
that
his apartment.
so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that
like, he didn't go out to a party.
When I first moved to the city, I lived with a couple of my best friends from college, and one of them was in graduate school, and he frequently was up that late working on papers and things. Yeah. Not even just papers, just things with hard deadlines. Like you said, college is all about the hard deadline.
I was an art student, and I can't tell you how many nights I spent in the art studio when all my friends were out partying.
All night.
Like, totally.
Yeah. Full nights. Full, complete nights.
I'd watch the sunrise from the art studio.
Yeah, I got an art degree as well, and there were times when I was in the theater drafting lab until 4 a.m. And luckily, my dorm was situated very close to it, unlike the situation Lauren is in here.
Yeah, so he supposedly carries her back to his place. So they arrive.
Yeah.
And Mike notices they are both incredibly drunk. And as Corey's actually like getting into his home, and I think he's starting to go upstairs. There's some mixed reports on if this is the stairs inside of his home or stairs leading up to his apartment. I don't know. But he actually pukes on the stairs. So he's clearly intoxicated as well.
Cute.
And like he got punched in the face. That could be a concussion that he's suffering from. Or a combination of it all. Could have been a lot of
things. Yeah, booze and getting punched in the face, I'd probably barf as well. But that does make me think that it's the stairs inside his apartment.
Me too.
Because if Mike noticed they were incredibly drunk, he would have been inside where Mike was. And then, there's going up the stairs.
I've gone to like the Google Maps
stairs
Street
in
View.
This condo?
I don't know. The Google Maps Street View doesn't show exterior stairs, but that doesn't mean that there's interior stairs that isn't connected to the unit. So I honestly, I have no idea.
Okay.
But it's been reported that he pukes on stairs minimally. That's what we know.
Okay, minimally, he heaves, and we've all been there.
And
but
so
also,
Mike helps him.
Stop trying to prey on this girl.
Right.
God.
Mike helps him get up to his room, and he cleans up a little bit, and at this point, Lauren's on the couch. And so Mike comes back to Lauren, and she's starting to say that she wants to go home. And it's not that she just wants to go home. She's actually telling Mike that he should come with her, and they should get some more drinks.
Oh, dear.
And so Mike is at this point trying to convince her just to like stay on the couch, sleep off the alcohol. But she's insistent on this. And he's starting to feel very uncomfortable. He doesn't know Lauren. And he feels like this is a bad situation for him to be in as a sober man with this very intoxicated young woman that his roommate randomly brought home.
Yeah.
So
totally see that.
So Mike calls Jay, and if you remember, Jay's his neighbor. They were in the same complex. And so Jay comes over. He actually takes Lauren back to his place. And he's saying the same thing, like, you need to sleep this off, stay on my couch, you'll be fine. Just chill. And Lauren is still adamant about leaving. So Lauren at this point says she wants to go home again. She calls.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm not sure if she's asking Jay to call people or if he's just calling people, but he calls David Rohn, who was Lauren's neighbor who walked to the apartment, to Jay's apartment with Lauren at the beginning of the night. But David doesn't answer. It's 4 a.m. at this point. And he called someone else. We don't know the name of this person, but whoever it was also didn't answer the phone, probably sleeping. And by 4:30 a.m., Lauren says she's going home. Like, she has her mind set on it.
Yeah.
So she leaves
she's gone.
Jay's house. And he watches her walk to the corner. And she then has to turn. And so he kind of just went back inside. And then she's just like 3 blocks from home. And that was the last time Lauren would be seen. So you can see on the map there, I've pointed to where she was last seen. And it's just a couple blocks to her place.
Yeah, I was going to say she only has like 3 blocks in between where she was last seen and being home. And I wonder if that second call that was placed was maybe placed to her boyfriend and they don't want to put that out there. I don't know. Because this seems
we have
like
no
the
idea.
kind of time...
Boyfriend or roommate?
This seems like the kind of time... Yeah, this seems like the kind of time when you're wanting to call someone's, like, closest people because they're like, listen, it's 4 a.m. She's already drunk, adamant on getting more drunk. I just want her to be safe. Maybe I should call her boyfriend. Or,
yeah.
I don't know.
And it's Jay and Jesse were also friends at camp. So it would make a lot of sense to call him. But that name has never been released. We know that they called David, but they never mentioned. They just say another phone call was made that went unanswered. That's all we know.
Okay. Yeah.
So around 3:45 a.m., so minutes after Lauren left Jay's apartment, or 4:45 a.m. I saw you highlight it. I'm like, I said it wrong.
So you just said 3 instead of 4.
Around 4:45 a.m., someone heard screams in the area. This is minutes after she would have left Jay's townhome. Unfortunately, I couldn't figure out where he heard these screams. But apparently the person who heard them was an unhomed man who was known in the area. And unfortunately, a few days after Lauren's disappearance, he passed away.
Oh.
So we don't know anything else.
There's no way, Yeah, so that's it.
But we just know that he says he heard screams at this time. That's it.
Okay. All right.
So,
and that's all it'll ever be. Because, okay. Crap.
So jumping ahead, about 12 hours later, Lauren's boyfriend Jesse's messaging her and calling her nonstop. And he felt like it was odd that he hadn't heard from her by that point in the day. And when they were texting the night before, when she told him that she was going to bed, when she really wasn't, he asked her to message him when she got up in the morning. Which, is just a very common thing in relationships, especially a relationship at their age. They don't live together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when he still hadn't heard from her that afternoon, he really started to worry. And so he just kept calling and texting. And eventually someone picked up her phone. This was an employee at Kilroy's. So they informed Jesse that the phone was left behind.
Oh, fuck. I forgot that she dropped her phone. In her purse and her keys. She has
her keys, everything.
None of
she has those shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So obviously at this point, Jesse is incredibly worried. And he asked Lauren's roommate to meet up with him so he could check on Lauren. This fact, this was from the 2020 episode. I think it's a little odd. At least I think it's from the 2020. It's either from the 2020 episode or the Trace Evidence podcast that I heard this. I honestly can't remember specifically where this came from. But I felt like this was a little odd. I don't think her roommate had anything in any way, shape, or form to do with this. But it's odd that, like, could she not check? Because apparently she gave Jesse a spare key. So I don't know if she just wasn't home. I don't know the circumstances. I find it a little weird, but it could be something that has zero relevance. Maybe her parents live in the area and she went back home after the semester. Who knows?
Or she wasn't done and she was at a final and she couldn't get over there to check. You know, it could have been a lot of things.
Yeah, I don't think that she has anything in any way, shape, or form to do with it. I just thought that was kind of odd, but I think we can move past it without really putting too much thought into it.
Yeah.
When Lauren wasn't in her apartment after Jesse got there, he reported her missing. So then Lauren's parents quickly came to Indiana from New York. And once they started to hear the details of Lauren's movement, they immediately believed that Jay Rosenbaum, Corey Rossman, and Jesse Wolfe know a whole lot more than they're saying. And their gut feeling was that Lauren was drugged at the sports bar. Like, immediately, that's what they believed.
I see why.
I understand why they're going to that. And there's still some more discussion here. We'll go into these ideas a little deeper.
Sure. But I understand why they would believe this.
Me too. So early in the investigation, Corey tells authorities that Lauren had snorted a mixture of cocaine and Klonopin. But I believe with
that's a speedball.
Yeah. I believe with this statement, he didn't see her do it. He heard from her or somebody else that she was doing it. He didn't physically see her snorting. So I think that's just kind of an important distinction. Again, this is not proof that she was using drugs.
Yeah, and I think it puts Corey in a very convenient position. That somehow he knows that Lauren snorted a speedball, but he didn't see it and he wasn't there.
Well, I don't think Corey's the only one saying this, but initially this story comes from Corey. So I don't want to put we'll talk about Corey in more detail, but I don't want to put too much weight on him, at least with this statement. And as I mentioned earlier, I know very little about these drugs. But I've talked to a handful of friends who know a whole lot more than me. So when I was talking to my friend Allie about how these drugs could impact Lauren's heart condition, she said that cocaine could definitely have an impact on long QT syndrome. And it could cause cardiac arrest. It will speed up your heart. And if she's not in that consistent rhythm that she needs to be in, it could have terrible side effects. She didn't really mention Klonopin when we were talking about it. But I have another friend who I asked more specifically about Klonopin. And he told me that these are two drugs that you really do not want to mix. He said that they will, in all likelihood, cause blackouts. And taking Klonopin works as a sedative. So he said when it's mixed with alcohol, it has the ability to cause cardiac dysrhythmia, which is obviously something that Lauren's already having to deal with her long QT syndrome. And he said that it's something where it's like when you are high on Klonopin, using it recreationally, especially when you're mixing it with something like cocaine, your body kind of shuts down, but your brain is still very much functioning. So her motor functions are very much impaired, but she might mentally know what's happening around her. But it all depends on how they're mixed, what levels they are, how much alcohol is involved. Like, there's a lot of things we don't know. But that was just kind of his very basic description to me. But given what we know throughout the night, that kind of makes sense. That she could have been in that sort of motor functions
Blackout.
limited state, but also a little more mentally aware. It's hard to tell.
God, that's so scary.
So very quickly after her disappearance, it's terrifying.
It's very scary, but very possible, and that's very scary.
So quickly after her disappearance, all of the young men that we've talked about so far, Jesse Wolf, Jay Rosenbaum, Corey Rossman, and Michael Beth, who was just kind of barely involved, but there.
Yeah, he was at his house.
Yeah, they all hired lawyers. So a lot of people get upset about this. I personally think go ahead and hire a lawyer. Like,
do it.
Nothing wrong with that. A lot of people are very upset about this fact, but I find nothing wrong with it.
I understand. And the thing is, I think it's just that you and I have heard so many of these stories and listened to so many of these stories and absorbed so much of this content that we're sort of more aware than the average person that calling a lawyer isn't essentially admitting guilt or saying you had anything to do with anything. It's a basic Miranda right. You're entitled to an attorney. And especially if I were someone like Michael Beth, who was only tangentially involved, I would immediately call a lawyer because I was just there working on my paper and I want that on the record.
It sounds like all these families are quite wealthy as well, which makes a difference in them getting lawyers right away, I think, as well. It's described that the townhomes that these men lived in, well, with the exception of Jesse Wolf, he actually rented a house. I think with a couple people in town. But Jay Rosenbaum, Corey Rossman, and Michael Beth, these townhomes that they lived in are kind of known as like the rich student townhomes. So it sounds like they all have a good amount of money.
Yeah. I mean, you don't get a townhome if you don't have a fair amount of money. So help me really quick with just a quick slap in the face reminder of which of, so just Michael Beth, she did not know, just roommate. Nope. Corey Rossman, friend of a friend, cleared by Jay Rosenbaum. Jay Rosenbaum we've known since camp, right?
Yes, exactly.
What about Jesse Wolf? Where did we...
Camp as well.
Where did we meet him?
Jesse Wolf's the boyfriend.
Well. Okay.
So
the boyfriend. Camp. Okay. So so the boyfriend and camp.
So there's a lot of names.
I see he lawyered up
in this. A lot of J's,
I was just doing a
lot of C's. We'll get to another Corey very shortly here.
Just just a quick I just needed a quick smack around the ears to remind me who was at camp and who is entering this story now.
Yeah, so Lauren's boyfriend, Jesse, initially helped with the search. He was out there actively searching for her. But fairly quickly, his parents did bring him back to New York. And he very much stayed away from the investigation. This was, from my understanding, very much pushed by his parents, being like, stay out of it. Because he obviously, he's her boyfriend. He's going to be one of the first people being looked into. So this doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Again, a lot of people get very upset over this. I think that he is a man in his early 20s and he's probably terrified and his parents are trying to do what they can to protect him.
Yeah.
I personally don't find something weird about it.
If I were a parent and my child were in this scenario, I would probably pull them home as well. And I mean, dog me on our Instagram if you want, but I would, if I had a son like Arthur, if there was any potential a danger like this that could result in litigation, I would immediately have my child pull themselves from that scenario as soon as they could.
Yeah, and we'll get to a little bit more very shortly here of some of his parents' views on Lauren.
Okay.
But there are also some very mixed reports on whether he was cooperating with the police anymore. And from the sense that I'm getting from multiple different articles in this case, he was still being helpful. He just had very little information to offer, and none of that information changed because he wasn't there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't
that's
think
true. He wasn't there for any of this.
Yeah, so I don't think it wasn't that he was cooperating. He just had nothing else to say because he barely had anything to say from the beginning. But
yeah, and
there's a lot of criticism
exactly
coming
his
to him.
Parents, yeah, that's probably why his parents were immediately like, no, come home, distance yourself from this. You were not even there that night. The more they poke and prod at you, the more you might say something that they might find relevant when in fact you weren't there and you don't know what happened.
Exactly.
She said, speaking from a parent's point of view, not from Kelly's point of view.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what happened. And like, obviously we don't know truly, but it makes sense. All of that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And then when it comes to Corey Rossman, he actually submitted his DNA. And I think that this is for any future potential use. I don't think there was anything found that his DNA would be compared to. I think this is just to have it on file in case anything's found in the future. But he did give his DNA. And he also made statements early on that were pretty blunt, saying, quote, "I'm not the last person with her. That's all I can say. I'm sorry." And some people say that he's become very uncooperative with the police with statements like that. But his lawyer says that this is very much not true. His lawyer would say that he was unable to help any further because after he was punched in the face, he actually suffered a concussion and blacked out. So we don't know what is really what he remembers and what he doesn't. But he's kind of made that blanket statement of like, I know I wasn't the last person to see her. Stop talking to me type of thing.
And I know that I've said it a million times. I'm not trying to dog anyone. And right now I'm not trying to dog Corey Rossman. Because I might have, if it were me and I were in his shoes, I might make a blunt statement like that as well and lawyer up. Because that's all you can. He's sort of doing everything he can do, which is give his DNA and tell them that he wasn't the last one who saw her. And what I wonder is if there was ever any, and maybe this comes up later, you can tell me, was there ever any pursuit to find out if there was a medical report filed that he in fact suffered this concussion?
That's a great question, and I could not find that anywhere. Because I wanted that information as well.
Right, because it's relevant. It would be relevant. But,
one very interesting thing is later, I also don't know when this statement was made, but he later said that isn't what he said. His lawyer said that he had a concussion, but he's not going to talk about it.
Okay.
So
I'm trying real hard. I'm stretching as far as I possibly can to not be like, who is this man?
There's some, everything I kind of understand as somebody who's like, if you're really not involved, stay out of it. Like, do what you can to support by giving your DNA, doing those sorts of things. But at the same time, there's just some sketchy stuff that it's like, we know her pathing that night, that she was consistently with him until 20 minutes before she disappeared. But we know nothing else.
Yeah. And then he's saying, oh, well, I wasn't the last person to see her, so I can't give you anything.
Yeah. And like, I'll tell you right now, like, we still have some more to go in this discussion, but she's never been found. We have no idea. This, basically, most of what we're going to be talking about for the rest of this episode are a couple facts, but mainly speculation.
Okay, well, as long as we're speculating, I'm speculating hard on Corey Rossman. I am trying as hard as I can to remain neutral, and I'm trying as hard as I can to remain neutral, but I like Corey Rossman for this a lot.
One thing I will say with this, which I actually don't remember if I put in my script or not, Mike Beth, his roommate, says he didn't leave the townhome after Lauren. Okay. So when Jay came to pick Lauren up, Mike Beth is like, I never saw him leave. Like, I don't know if that's something where Mike Beth could have been in his room and just truly didn't hear him, and he could have. I don't know. But that's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, and from what we talked about, what I recall, Mike Beth sort of put him to bed because he had already thrown up.
Exactly.
And he was sort of like, into bed you go. So maybe he stayed up and worked on that paper more and is telling the truth and knew that this guy didn't leave. I don't know.
See, I'm trusting Mike Beth a lot here, but...
Because he seems to be the only neutral party here.
He seems to be the only sober one.
Yeah, definitely that. Yeah, definitely that.
So there's just it's so hard to like what could have happened, like, because you're listening to all of this and be like, I don't like Corey. I don't like his movements. I don't like how he's treating her. But if he's puking and his roommate's putting him to bed and never heard him leave, then he can't be involved, right? I don't know.
When I say I like Corey Rossman for this, I don't mean I like Corey Rossman as a suspect for whatever happened to Lauren, but I do like Corey Rossman as a suspect for someone who may have potentially drugged her, since her parents are so worried about that possibility. I like him for that. I buy it. But I also believe if Mike Beth was there and sober, he put him to bed, he would probably know if this drunk guy was stumbling all around, woke up again.
Yeah, exactly. So the police have kind of come forward with a couple ideas of what happened, but they kind of haven't all at the same time. They kind of say that there's a couple main possibilities, including involvement from her friends and a potential stranger abduction. So one thing that they're really taking into account, especially given the multiple accounts of alcohol use and potential drug use that night, and her past drug use with alcohol, she was actually arrested 9 months before her disappearance for public intoxication and illegal consumption, since she was under the age of 21. So this instance was at a tailgate party. Her and Jesse were both arrested for drinking underage in public at a tailgate party. Okay. They both were basically put into the drunk tank, allowed to sober up, and released and paid a fine. So it wasn't something super serious. I think a lot of college students have probably gone through similar scenarios.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There was a police blotter in our college newspaper, and we used to cut out the stories about people we went to high school with who got charges just like this, public intoxication, and we put them up on our dorm room wall. Happens all the time.
Like, I think all the time. This is nothing super serious, but it does show that, again, she's partying. That's kind of what they're saying here.
Yeah, I would say the only thing of note in that's particularly concerning is just with her heart condition. You know, like, it might not be very safe at all for her to be drinking at this level. I do not know. Maybe maybe we forgot, and Allie mentioned something about how alcohol could affect her long
She didn't
QT
say anything
syndrome,
specifically, but in all of the reports, they said that doctors told Lauren to avoid alcohol and drugs.
Okay.
So clearly
so drinking could potentially,
yes.
yeah.
But then they're also considering the fact that they did find a small amount of cocaine in her room. So authorities are really needing to take this into consideration during all of this. And then Jesse's mother would come forward and she would say something. And I think you can start to see his mother's view of Lauren in all of this. But he said that in some point previously, when Lauren and Jesse were at camp together, she was actually kicked out of camp for drug use. What? So Lauren's parents say that this is false. They deny this ever happened. And I'm unsure if the camp has ever confirmed this. I have never seen kind of the camp comment on this. So I don't know if it's true or not. But take it with a grain of salt. But again, it has the potential, like, I kind of could see it if we do have some drug abuse going on here, but I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty big thing for Lauren's parents to say that never happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a pretty big statement to come out and say, like, she was kicked out of camp for drug use. When it's like, that seems like the kind of thing that the camp would immediately come out and say, like, we don't use drugs at our camp or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't feel true to me, but I wasn't there.
Yeah, and so the police, like, again, they're looking at this and they're thinking, like, could her drug use and alcohol use be a factor in her disappearance? Or is it something that also happened that night in addition to her disappearance? Like, you can't, they can't really say right now, but they have to look at it all.
Yeah.
But if we're going to go down the idea of stranger abduction, there are a couple different theories. There's some security footage that was a few blocks away from Jay and Lauren's apartment, kind of in that general area, that saw a white pickup truck driving around, and it looked like it passed a couple different cameras. Almost as if this person is kind of driving around the whole neighborhood. And according to Crime Weekly, that's actually not accurate. There was actually some issues with the cameras, and the truck actually only drove by once. And it was a truck from a nearby business. So police talked to the business, they talked to the driver of the truck, and they were very quickly ruled out. But they're clearly trying to, like, piece things together using cameras and trying to figure this out. Because this is 2011. There's probably a lot of cameras in this area.
Yeah. In a bar district, Greek life district area, like in fancy condo territory, I would guess there would be many cameras.
I will say with the fancy condos, the cameras were down.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So there's no footage from those townhomes. Even though they did have a security system, it was not working at that time.
Geez, guys.
Very disappointing.
Yeah. Oof.
And Lauren wouldn't actually be seen on any cameras, I think, from exiting that alley. I think. I haven't seen any reports of any cameras. So basically, once she gets to Corey and Mike's townhome, there's no camera footage of her after that.
Okay.
So you would think, since we do already know there's multiple cameras in this area, that she would have been seen walking back to her apartment. But she's not seen on any of them.
Yeah.
So I don't really, that very much confuses me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it begs the question. Yeah, it begs the question that if she said she was going home, she did exit the townhome, why is she missing from the footage?
Did she actually leave?
That question. Did she? Yeah, exactly. Did she leave?
There's one point where I was also thinking, like, maybe somehow she got by all the cameras. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But she could have gotten to her apartment.
Woman.
She doesn't have her keys. She
Mm-hmm.
dropped her keys in the alley.
Yeah.
So does she try to go somewhere else? Does she maybe try to walk to Jesse's place? I don't know how far he lived from her, but it doesn't sound like it was terribly far. Or did she go to another friend's place? Like, could they be trying to have their starting location from where she went missing being in a completely different area? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I feel like she likely would have been seen on at least one camera in that walk to point the police in that direction.
Right.
I don't know. But the last, like, big theory that I think has some weight to it, but I just, again, I just don't know, is that Corey and Jay may be partially responsible for Lauren's disappearance.
Okay, I'm very interested in hearing about this because this is sort of where my brain is going.
There's a lot of different scenarios in here with this idea. What if Lauren had an issue with her long QT syndrome? She went into cardiac arrest, and all these guys have been partying all night, and maybe they gave her drugs. Maybe she OD'd after taking drugs that she chose to take, but they felt like they would be at fault. And it was purely accidental, but they now have to make a choice if they're going to call the police or hide her body.
Yeah.
And she wasn't reported missing for 12 hours after she was last seen at 4:30 a.m., which is definitely enough time to have potentially taken her somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, we go back to Corey's roommate, Mike Beth, said he called Jay. Jay took Lauren, and then Corey didn't come out of his room after that. He supposedly was home all night long, passed out in his bed after puking on the stairs. So would it just then have been potentially Jay? But Jay and Lauren are friends from childhood. Would he really do that? I don't know. And then
I mean, they're childhood friends. I don't know. But I do see why the theory has become a theory. I do see why it's being theorized, is the words wow. I do see why it would be theorized. Those are the words I'm looking for. However, I have the same hang up as you, is that they have been friends since they were children. I mean, he probably knows her parents. He probably knows her family.
And Indiana, who knows if they knew this? There's a good possibility they didn't. But Indiana does have protections for people who call from medical emergencies that are from drug-induced anything, where they won't be charged. So even if he was the one who gave her the drugs, he can't be charged with her death if she dies from an overdose. He potentially could be charged for other things. He could be charged for having the drugs if he still has them. Like, there's other things to it, but it wouldn't be like a manslaughter charge for him if he called and he did the right thing and got her the help.
Right.
So who knows if he knew this? But Indiana did have that law.
Are they protected from, like, negligence?
I think if there's a death involved, they can't be charged
drugs
in anything associated with the death.
Okay.
So, like, if they come into the home and they see they have a ton of drugs and they're dealing, well, that's a whole different story. But if they come in and they just have, like, a tiny bag of something, or they already used everything that they had, he can't be charged for his actions. If he gave her the drugs, he can't be charged for her death. Okay. And that's a protection that Indiana has to get people to call, because they want to get people help and save their lives.
You want to, you don't ever want to be like, and then they died of a drug overdose. It's like, no, then we gave them life-saving measures, that's what you want.
Yeah, and not to have people be scared to make that phone call.
Yeah.
So one thing that like with this whole theory and everything that is very interesting to me, that puts some things through my head that I feel like hasn't been discussed a ton, is Lauren's comments to Mike saying that she wanted to drink more and she wanted to keep partying. What if she started saying the same thing to Jay, and what ends up happening is she has a boost of coke?
I was going to say, what if they do coke together?
Because that's going to sober her up a little bit from that down state that she's in from the alcohol and potentially Klonopin. That would give her more energy. That would wake her up a little bit. I don't know. And like, what if that happened and she took a bump of coke and then went into cardiac arrest because of her long QT syndrome?
Exactly. Exactly. That's the thing about coke. Especially if you're playing with like a heart condition, like you're playing a very dangerous game with every bump of coke you take with a heart condition, I would imagine.
But then it's also like, okay, you're kind of in the same boat of Jay then has to figure out how to get rid of her. And yeah, he could have called Corey in the morning and said, Corey, I need your help. Like, you were with her all night. You know what happened. Like, who knows? That's entirely possible.
Right.
But a huge holdup for me is that they were like long-time childhood friends.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So then, you can also have the conversation in this as well, which I haven't really put in my script, but like, if she was drugged, could she have been drugged by one of them? Could she have been drugged by Corey because he wanted to hook up with her? We don't know Corey. Lauren didn't know Corey. But then if he again went to bed, Jay's still in the same boat.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So we only have a couple more theories here. One that kind of fits all of this and gives that overdose theory a little bit of credence comes from a man named Corey Hammersley. And in 2012, Hammersley was also a student at Indiana University. And he actually had a mental breakdown while on some sort of mix of drugs. He apparently was incredibly involved in the drug scene on campus. And one day he had some sort of mixture and he exited a house. I believe this is like mid-afternoon, wearing only a hat. He was completely naked except for a hat. And he had a gun where he fired 32 rounds. Some of these shots went into homes and cars nearby, but many of them were actually fired towards police.
Holy shit.
This is the year after.
That is not good.
She disappeared. Yeah.
I was going to say, that's the next year, and this is very bad. Lots of this is bad. Leaving the house, a mixture of drugs, leaving the house wearing only a hat, that's fine. That gives Cecil vibes to me. But then 30 rounds at the police, that's a different story.
I've seen images when I was just looking all of this up. I saw images that clearly were from the news because they were blacked out because he was naked, of police trying to tackle him.
Oh God.
And it looks like a sunny, bright day. And it's just imagine that.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
You're on patrol and they're can we get everybody over here? We got a drunk guy who is super powerful on drugs and also he has a gun.
Right.
Christ alive.
So obviously he's arrested at this point. And while in prison, he apparently made comments to another prisoner that he knew what happened to Lauren. And this is after they both were watching reports of Lauren's disappearance on the news. So it's like the two guys just sitting there watching it, and he's like, oh yeah, I know what happened to her. And he said that she OD'd while with friends that night, and that they drove to the nearby Ohio River to dump her body. And he was pretty specific in this, it sounds like. He said that they were drinking and doing ecstasy. So this is the first time we're getting ecstasy into the mix here.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, but that's never been brought up.
Yeah, but also, I don't think it's impossible that you can just kind of say ecstasy can't be part of the picture, because she obviously did like to dabble in drugs. And
oh, yeah, I was going to say, no, yeah, you certainly wouldn't rule out ecstasy, but it is the first time we're hearing it in conjunction with her story. So, yeah, no, I wouldn't rule out somebody doing ecstasy. Maybe not even just her, a large group. Maybe.
Yeah, it could have been all of them. If that's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
We don't know a whole lot more than that, because when the police came to talk to him about this, he said that he didn't make these statements. He doesn't know what they're talking about.
What?
So this was like the other inmate saying, hey, this guy said this. And then when the police actually confronted him, he's like, I have no idea. What? Like, what?
Right. Right. I don't know nothing. I didn't see nothing.
Yeah.
Which to me, Hammersley denying saying that, I don't know what to believe, because I feel like if he was not lying, then he would have said, like, oh no, I totally did say that, in the hopes that his sentence might get reduced.
Unless that would potentially rat on, like, what if he knows Corey? What if he knows Jay? Like, what if they're his friends? I don't know any of that. I have no clue.
Exactly, yeah. You're
Indiana
right.
University is a big school, so it's entirely possible they didn't even know each other. But you just...
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, by the same flip of the coin, if he does get, talked to get a reduced sentence, then he could be seen as a snitch. We all know.
Yeah.
We all know.
And so another theory, because there's just so many theories in this case, and in my opinion, this is not likely, but I understand why people want to discuss it, is that when Lauren and Corey go back to her apartment, Corey is confronted by Zach Oates and his friends. What if after Zach punches them and they start to walk off and go to Corey's townhome, what if Zach immediately gets on the phone with Jesse saying, hey, some guy's here with Lauren. She's clearly messed up. Like, he's trying to take advantage of her. And then Jesse leaves and tries to go find him. I feel like there would be records of this that would be discussed at some point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think this is the case. I think if that happened, the police would have more evidence, whether it's security footage. If they got some of her, they would have gotten some of him.
Right. Or cell phone data or anything like that. Like call records, that kind of thing. I mean, because we're speaking in theories, in theory, sure, that could have happened. But I don't know if that is what happened.
Yeah, like I understand how that theory started. I get it. Because I would be kind of surprised if Zach Oates didn't call Jesse, honestly.
I would be as well, yeah.
But that's a lot to say. Yeah, he left his home in the middle of the night and went to go track them down. I don't know. And like in that situation, then you have Corey, he gets home, he gets to his room. Does he find her like immediately leaving Corey's place and picks her up?
Yeah.
Then what happens?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't buy it, but I understand why it's discussed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And basically,
yeah,
see, it's hard. Like you get it. You understand.
I'm just trying to figure out. whether I buy it or not. I don't know if I do. I mean, I feel like his friend probably called him.
I think there's a good likelihood, at least
But
minimally
he,
texted.
yeah, but if I recall correctly from the beginning, when Lauren told him she was going to sleep, he also told her that's where he kind of was too, right?
I think he was home, but I think I read some reports that he fell asleep like 2:33, so he could have fallen asleep
Yeah.
around the time that this interaction happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe missed that call
Yeah, or he could have
and
also
didn't.
been awake if he's just saying that. Like, who knows? Like, I don't know. This is a case that's really baffled me for years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
'Cause
think it's because there's so many people involved here.
there's so many people involved, and there's a whole lot more. I actually have this a little further down in my script, but I'll just say it now. I highly recommend, if you are all interested in this case, there's a whole lot more I'm not talking about because I'm trying to do this in one episode as clearly and as concise as I can. But I'm going to link a handful of different podcasts who have covered this that I think do fantastic coverage that talk about other things. So I highly recommend it. I think Crime Weekly, I know I talk about them a lot. I'm just a big fan of them. They do the most in-depth coverage of any of the ones I'm listing, but they're all really good. I highly recommend anyone to check them out. So they'll all be in the description of this episode. But I personally believe that it is likely that Lauren suffered some sort of medical emergency. And whether that's she OD'd or whether that's cardiac arrest due to her syndrome, I don't know. I think that could potentially be a toss-up. I think either's as likely as each other.
Yeah.
But that puts me, if that happens, then I think that the friends in some way, shape, or form are covering up something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if that happened after she left, she would have been found. Whether it was on the street or something, she would have been found.
Yeah. It gives the vibes of like, oh God, there's secret society at Yale, I think it is, and like there's some crime that happened, and I don't know. It gives the vibes of like one person got shot in the middle of the town and no one in town saw anything.
Yeah.
Like that's
everyone's
kind of
protecting
the vibes
each other.
here.
But then also saying that,
yeah,
that's a whole lot of people to keep their mouths shut for this long. This was 2011.
Yes.
It's 2024
yes,
now.
Exactly.
It's a lot of people to not say anything for that long. Which is one reason it's hard for me to believe. That long. But I just can't understand what else happened. The likelihood of a stranger abduction is so slim. That time of night, like 4 a.m. is like too early in the morning for like your typical, like statistically speaking, stranger abduction. And she would have been caught on camera probably within 1 block. If she kept walking, she probably would have been caught on some camera. So I'm not convinced she ever left the townhomes.
I'm not either. I'm not. That's one thing. I don't know a lot of things, but I know that I do think that she did not leave that townhome.
Yeah, like there were some things. Crime Weekly talks about this, but I didn't see it in any of the coverage, the articles and stuff that I found. I believe, if I remember right, they said it was at Jay's place. It could have been Corey's. I honestly don't remember. Someone in one of those 2 guys in the townhomes had friends staying with them. I want to say it's Jay because why would Corey just ditch him all night long? If he had friends staying with him. But they're from Michigan. And they were like all in town for the weekend partying. So what if she goes back to Jay's, one of these other guys who they're from another state and Lauren has no clue who they are, does something.
Yeah.
Like that's entirely possible. But the reason I didn't want to like
It
do like
is.
a big piece on that here is because the only place I ever heard that is Crime Weekly. I think they do
Mm-hmm.
fantastic research, but I just couldn't confirm it anywhere
Yeah.
else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because
But
we've heard
that's
nothing about that.
yeah, like it's just I don't know. And unfortunately, that's kind of all that we really have on Lauren's disappearance, at least that I'm going to talk about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because this is the long episode, I'll link those other shows below. There are some theories about local biker gangs that could be involved. There
Hmm.
are stories. There's this man, Daniel Messel, who is convicted of kidnapping and murdering another young woman named Hannah Wilson from the same general area, kind of close to the same time. So he's heavily looked into. So if you want more of a
Mm-hmm.
deep dive, please go check out those other shows. They do a great job covering this case, and there's just so much to it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of just want to finish up with like watching that 2020 episode. Her dad said something
Mm-hmm.
that is just it's so sad, and he said that he'll never understand that he understands that he likely will never see his daughter again just based on the statistics. And we say that a lot on the show. I think I said that a couple minutes ago, based on the statistics,
Yeah.
this or that.
Mm-hmm.
But to hear a parent talk about it in that way is
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Oh, that's so sad. As soon as you said that he thinks he'll likely never see his daughter again, I'm like, oh God,
Yeah. And his parents, or
that's
her parents seem incredibly intelligent people. They're doing everything they can to get the help, and they understand what the evidence they're seeing unfortunately kind of means. And
mm-hmm.
her mom created a Facebook page, and it was
Mm-hmm.
hard to read. Most of the posts were from Lauren's mom, and they were all about how much pain she was in not having her daughter. It was every birthday. It was every
Mm-hmm.
March, every June 3rd, the day that she went missing. Every like big milestone, she was posting photos of Lauren as a
Yeah.
kid and just saying that like I will never have you again. And it's just
Mm.
it's hard to read. I went
That's
back like 3 or 4 years and I
oh
couldn't do anymore.
yeah. Oh damn.
But that is what we
That's
have. So Kelly,
terrible.
do you have any final thoughts?
Um, this is a toughie. This is a Rubik's cube of a case. Like you you just have so many people involved, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons stuff's getting lost in translation.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think that it's been long enough that her dad's supposition is probably true, and I feel so sorry for them that that is the way it is. I wish that there was any more evidence for them to go on, but I do believe that she didn't leave those townhomes. And if she didn't leave those townhomes and she wasn't seen on any security footage, then we're starting to narrow down our reasoning of what could have happened to her.
Agreed.
So, yeah, I can't say too much more because I'm not sure about anything. I know that I know that this Corey pings for me. I just don't like I don't like the I don't like the manner, the state that she was in around him, that he was the only
Mm-hmm.
one with her at certain points. I don't like any of that, but it does seem like he didn't leave either.
Yeah,
So,
it's just so weird because I'm in the same boat. I don't
mhm.
like the way he was when he was with her based on what we know.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and another thing we sort of know is that it's not really likely he left the townhome either.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish I had a more conclusive theory that I was like, I back this one. I'm gonna totally say this happened. It's just tough. All I can say is that I feel really terrible for these parents, and I feel just compelled to say that if you have any health conditions, please, please be careful with any substance you're putting in your body, anything like that. Just be careful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Just in regard to the medical aspect. And I don't know, maybe drag the Ohio River. I do wish there was some movement that we saw in
There
this case,
was
you know?
I knew this was going to be such a long episode. I didn't put all of that in. There were lots of ground searches. There was a tip that came in at some point saying that she was in a lake and they dredged the lake. Like there was a lot of that. Just nothing ever came from any of it, unfortunately.
Oh man.
And kind of what I mentioned very early on in that picture, what about her coat? It looked like she was carrying something, and supposedly that image was taken on her way leaving her apartment to go walk to Jay's. But I never heard another word about that coat. I just noticed it in the photo.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the first things I noticed in the photo.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot that we don't know as the public. But I also think that there's probably a lot the police don't know, because otherwise we would see something else in this case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that is all that we have. So thank you all for listening to Have You Heard About This Case? If you liked this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and follow us on Spotify. You can find us on Instagram at Have You Heard About This Case Pod, on TikTok at HYHATC, or you can email us at haveyouheardaboutthiscase@gmail.com. Thanks, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.